This is for the people that have an interest, the people that want to be involved.
There was no collusion at all.
This is for the people that are upset and looking for a place to use their voice.
Both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
This is for the people that want to make a difference, for the people that want to be on the right side of history.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
And I get it. In today's society, it's difficult to have a political opinion and to make it be known. This can be due to fear or because you feel like you don't understand what's going on.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
But if he can do it, so can you. Join me every Sunday on Backstories, where we'll discuss all the top political stories and how it applies to all of us. And trust me, this is not your everyday show on politics. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Backstories with me, Dais. And let me tell you, I am beyond excited to be back with all of you after my 2-week vacation over in Europe. So it was a great time, and there's so much I could go into details about with all of you, but we're here to talk politics. We are not here to talk about my vacation, right? So unfortunately, today's episode will be a little less content-filled than usual because I'm still regaining my sea legs, so to speak, and I'm overcoming the jet lag from being overseas. However, I am going to give you the best that I've got, and let's get right down to the nitty-gritty. We're going to begin our very first segment with the segment called 3 Shutdowns in 1 year. This segment is called that because that is the exact number of shutdowns that Donald Trump has caused to happen within 1 year, the year of 2018. Anyone that regularly watches this show already knows my stance against Donald Trump, and they also know my stance that this wall that he keeps shutting down the government over is never going to happen. And this sentiment that the wall is never going to happen is becoming more and more of a clear reality, so to speak, for Donald Trump, which is exactly why he continues to shut down the United States federal government over this ridiculous border wall. Now, I hesitate to call Donald Trump a child because I consider that to be an affront against all children. However, I will call Donald Trump without any hesitation a mentally unstable, immature, and petulant moron. And I again say that without hesitancy, period. Now, it should be noted that this wall, that again is never going to happen, would cost the United States government upwards of $20 billion if it were to be completed in total. But, however, his Circus Act administration has identified priority locations where wall needs to be built because there is no existing structure. But we already know how great the Donald Trump White House Circus Act administration is at prioritizing, right? Quote, the administration's top priority is building about 104 miles of barriers in the Rio Grande Valley, which has become by far the most common area for Central American families to cross between ports of entry, i.e. illegally. Pretty much all that would be new barriers, since pre-Trump there weren't many man-made barriers along the existing natural barrier of the Rio Grande. With the rest of the money, it would want to build, in order of priority, 27 miles of barriers in the Yuma sector in Arizona, 14 miles in the El Centro sector in Eastern California, and 55 miles of barriers in the Laredo sector in Western Texas. It would round out the $5 billion with 5 miles in the San Diego sector, and 9 miles in the El Paso sector, far west Texas and New Mexico, end quote. In this debate over federal government spending, the House of Representatives, however, has currently approved Donald Trump to receive more than the $5 billion he's requesting for this wall. And it only did so because the House of Representatives is currently still under Republican control. This, however, their approval of this up more than $5 billion was a futile effort because anything that passes out of the House of Representatives must first be approved by the Senate in order to become a law. Now, the trick here is, in order for any federal government spending bill to become a law through the Senate must have 60 votes to approve it, and the Republicans simply do not have those numbers. So, as you can see from this United States Senate seat breakdown, there are currently 47 Democrats in the Senate, with the support of 2 independent senators that vote in line with the Democrats, for a total of 49 senators voting no to Trump's border wall. And there are currently 51 Republican senators voting yes to Trump's border wall, which is a far cry from the 60 that they need for Trump to get the dumb wall. So, because again of this Senate breakdown, the Senate has proposed to only give Donald Trump $1.6 billion for 65 miles of additional fencing. And again, I want to repeat that. They have approved $1.6 billion for additional fencing, which is not the wall that Donald Trump is requesting. However, I'm sure that Donald Trump would try to turn this into some sort of victory and claim that fencing was all he wanted to begin with. But as it stands right now, Donald Trump doesn't consider the fencing to be sufficient for his border wall request, which is why, in a nutshell, we find ourselves again in the 3rd federal government shutdown within 1 year. If you don't quite understand what a partial government shutdown is, which is what we're currently facing, here's how Donald Trump is hurting the American people with his shutdown. And I can't emphasize that enough, that it is indeed his shutdown, not the Democrats and not anybody else's. 400 federal employees are furloughed, meaning they are required to take a forced leave of absence without pay. Another 400,000 are required to work without immediate pay. There will be delays in the authorizations of new Medicare signups, and the following services will experience closed or limited operations: national parks, IRS and tax refunds, the State Department that handles passports and visas, as well as environmental and food and drug inspections. So where do we go from here is the real question at the end of the day. The Democrats have already calculated how they plan on handling the government shutdown once they take over the House of Representatives January 3rd of 2019. And they have calculated that Donald Trump will take another hit to his already pitiful job approval rating because of this shutdown, and they are correct. Donald Trump's abysmal 40% job approval rating has dropped even further, with only 36% of people approving in the country of him and his border wall. And again, I can't emphasize enough how there will always be somewhere between the mid-30s and in the low 40s of people that support Donald Trump, because that is his core base of supporters, if you will. Those people are the people that are blind and are never going to change their minds on anything that Donald Trump says or anything that Donald Trump does. Now that we've established that Donald Trump is rightfully taking the blame for this government shutdown, the House Democrats are moving forward with their plans, and here is a basic outline of what their plans is going to be. Quote, as reported by Politico, House Democrats are discussing 3 options, including a short-term continuing resolution that would fund 7 areas of the government at their current levels through February 8th, setting up another shutdown between Democrats and Trump. Number 2, a longer-term continuing resolution that would fund the government through September 30th and kick this fight down the road. And number 3, a so-called omnibus package that would include 6 appropriations bills and a continuing resolution just to address the thorny issue of Homeland Security funding, end quote. At the end of the day, anyone with a functioning brain cell and the ability to have common sense and reason with themselves would question why would anyone continue with this ridiculous government shutdown knowing that it is only going to cause more political trouble or turmoil for them. Well, according to Donald Trump, he has several reasons to justify this government shutdown. However, he keeps passing the blame to the Democrats, even though he vowed that he would take ownership for it. But the people, the American people, know better, and they are going to continue to give him the blame for it, and rightfully so. I want to take a few minutes just to debunk some of these reasons that Donald Trump has for shutting down the government. Firstly, Trump claims that the Democrats want open borders to let immigrants move freely in and out of our borders. This is fundamentally untrue, period, full stop. Democrats do not want open borders, but they're not going to approve funding for a financially irresponsible border wall, and they're not going to approve it just on the basis that it is Donald Trump requesting it. I mean, no one would approve of anything from a political novice like Donald Trump. Secondly, Trump claims that illegal immigration has increased and that a wall will stop it. And this, too, is not true. In fact, illegal immigration resulting in new immigrants crossing the borders has decreased. The reason why illegal immigration as a whole continues to increase is that we have people that come into the U.S. on visas, meaning they come legally, but then they stay after the term of their visa has expired, which is illegal. But since they continue to stay, we continue to have this increase in illegal immigration. This means that there is no need for a wall because a wall is not going to stop the people that are already here. And again, the people that are newly crossing the border has decreased. So, there's another reason for why this wall won't happen. Thirdly, Trump claims that illegal immigrants have been bringing in loads of drugs with them crossing our borders, on their persons, on their bodies, so to speak. This is partially true, because Donald Trump's chief of staff, John Kelly, who is going to be gone soon, he admitted in 2017 that there is a drug smuggling problem in which immigrants have been bringing in drugs from the borders, but they've been doing so through underground tunnels, not by crossing our borders. And for the Trump supporters that can't put 2 and 2 together, a wall will have no effect whatsoever on underground tunnels. I mean, that is literally just common sense in its basic form. Finally, Trump very ignorantly correlates immigration with crimes and gangs. This claim has been repetitively proven untrue for a very long period of time. The fact of the matter is that there is no correlation between increased immigration and increased crimes and gangs. Furthermore, statistics show that immigrants are less likely to commit a crime here in the United States than the native-born American. Figure that. This goes hand in hand with Trump's very dumb and ignorant claim, that is also false, that there have been terrorists crossing the border through Mexico. Donald Trump's own Homeland Security, his own Department of Homeland Security, issued an assessment that stated that there was no credible information at all that any terrorist has entered the United States through Mexico. So there you have it. With all that being said, I think I've proven my point exactly on why this wall will never happen. And as unfortunate as it may be, I've got more to report on Trump's idiocy after the break.
The results from those primary elections, women winning big.
This year's elections are shaping up to make political history for women.
Tuesday was a historic night for female candidates, and the numbers are only going to go higher.
victories pushed the number of women nominees running for the House to at least 183.
Women are now the major party nominees for governor in 11 states.
And D.C. is about to get its first Muslim congresswoman. Democrat Rashida Tlaib won the primary for Michigan's 13th congressional district.
About 2/3 of the races, Democratic primaries this year, where there has not been an incumbent and there's been a woman running against a man, the woman has won.
History being made in Georgia. Stacey Abrams won the Democratic primary for governor, making her the nation's first black woman to lead a major party's ticket for governor.
I hope that you will all join us in our fight for the future.
It's just amazing what women are doing. They feel this so deeply.
In a lot of ways, this is a response to Trump. Women are stepping up.
Is the future female?
Yeah, I think for the Democrats in 2018, it sure looks that way.
This next segment is called Tired of Winning, because that is the quote that Donald Trump used to describe the feelings and emotions that his base of supporters would feel should he win the White House. Now, I'm using this title as a point of sarcasm because what I will really be reporting on is all the ways that Donald Trump continues to lose and continues to fail the American people. There was recently a case that involved 12 immigrants, and they were seeking asylum vis-a-vis seeking safety in the United States because of all the violence and situations that are going on in their country. A federal court judge reversed Donald Trump's administration's decision to deny these 12 people access to the United States. But he didn't stop there, because he also ordered Donald Trump to not deport those 12 individuals. Additionally, that same judge told Donald Trump that he must return anyone else that he denied access to the United States and bring them back here. And for a third injury, that same judge told Donald Trump that he must use the previous method of assessing asylum seekers and not the new one that Trump came out with, which was far more strict and far more technical than the standard that has been used for several decades. So, essentially, what these orders did was force Donald Trump to keep the doors of the United States open to all immigrants and asylum seekers that are victims of persecution and victims of violence in their native countries. But this is the way that it kind of should be, right? Our Constitution effectively requires that we allow asylum seekers into the United States. Quote, the federal government is required to allow people to seek asylum if they've been persecuted on behalf of their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group, end quote. Essentially, Donald Trump continues his losing streak when it comes to his racist immigration policies. So now I want to move on to a different area where Donald Trump continues to fail and lose, and that is the military, because, he supposedly loves the military just so much. After all, with his undying love and respect for the military, he has forced out a military general, John Kelly, as being his chief of staff, and he has essentially fired James Mattis from being the Secretary of Defense, whom is also a prominent military figure. So much for that undying love and respect for the military, right? With that same undying love and respect that he does not have, but claims to, Trump made an unannounced visit to Iraq to visit the military troops there. This trip, however, came after Trump blatantly lied and said that he had personally ordered his troops to defeat ISIS, and they were successful in doing so. You should all know that ISIS is a terrorist organization, and it did not lose. It is still very much so in business. Yet Donald Trump took all of our troops out of Syria because he claimed that he won the war, which he did not. Anyways, he also pulled our troops out of other areas surrounding ISIS in another foolhardy and dumb decision. So, with that exact same illogical thought process in making this unannounced trip, Trump attempted to set up a meeting with the Iraqi Prime Minister only 2 hours in advance, that of which the Iraqi Prime Minister, of course, denied and canceled, because that is not the way that you're supposed to do business with world leaders. So, because of Trump's unannounced trip, and because of his refusal to make an appropriate meeting with the Iraqi Prime Minister, the Iraqi politicians have felt insulted, and rightfully so, and now they are demanding that the United States remove all their troops out of Iraq, which is going to now pose a very serious national security issue to the United States. So thank you, Donald Trump, for failing and losing on that issue as well. And if that wasn't enough, during that same unannounced trip to Iraq, Donald Trump exposed a top-secret Navy SEAL who was on deployment and on a mission by recording a video with this individual without blurring out their face to conceal their identity, which effectively violates security protocols. He recorded this video because he's such a fangirl, he's such a teenage schoolgirl, and he was compelled to post it on none other than Twitter. So thank you for that as well, Donald Trump. Now, this situation was supposed to be a productive and positive trip for Donald Trump, but it turned sour because he is again not a winner, he is a loser. Continuing on with this losing streak, Donald Trump had to shut his charity down recently. He had to shut it down because of serious legal issues. Quote, the New York Attorney General has opened a lawsuit against Donald Trump due to a shocking pattern of illegality, end quote. So the Trump Foundation charity shut down basically because it made a deal with the state of New York prosecutors and the New York Attorney General because they were implicated as having serious illegal activities going on in that charitable organization. But the lawsuit, however, is far from over, you see, because the New York Attorney General is also seeking $2.8 million in restitution due to that illegal conduct of Trump's so-called charitable foundation. Some of that illegal conduct includes the following. Quote, the suit includes a number of eye-popping details of alleged shady behavior. According to the lawsuit, Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, helped direct donations to veterans from the Trump Foundation in an attempt to promote Trump's candidacy. The foundation also made improper campaign contributions to Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, according to the suit. The lawsuit also claims that the foundation's board of directors had not formally met since 1999, and that the Trump Foundation promoted Trump properties and used money intended for philanthropy to settle various other lawsuits, end quote. Wow. Just wow. They have not met since 1999. So, well, as of Saturday, 12/29/2018, we have yet another piece of blockbuster Donald Trump's an idiot news. The New Jersey Attorney General this time has evidence that Donald Trump's Garden State Golf Club has committed immigration crimes. Shocker, right? Yes, you indeed heard that right. Mr. Anti-Immigration and King of Hypocrisy himself, Donald Trump, owns a golf club in New Jersey called the Garden State Golf Club, and they had allegedly been handing out fraudulent immigration green cards and fake Social Security numbers to undocumented illegal immigrants. And not only that, Donald Trump has been hiring these people as employees at his golf club. So there's a guy named Anibal Romero, and he is the attorney that is representing two females that have come forward as undocumented immigrants hired by Donald Trump and issued those fake green cards and Social Security numbers. So Anibal Romero did the right thing as a noble citizen and turned those documents in to New Jersey Attorney Generals, and he even notified Robert Mueller. Quote, Romero told the Daily News that he has been in contact with prosecutors from the New Jersey Attorney General office. Romero said he gave the prosecutors the fake green cards and social security numbers that golf club employees had allegedly been given to the two women when they worked there, end quote. So, it certainly appears to me that Donald Trump is a glutton for punishment, and I will openly admit that I'm a glutton for watching this punishment because he deserves every bit of it. And I've got more for you after the break.
Brothers and sisters, it's time. And I know you can feel it.
2.
Let's fight for those who fight for us.
3.
You see, something's happening in America. When we stand together, we have the power.
So, the Republican Party is continuing their fall from grace, and that fall is most notable in the voter fraud scheme that occurred in the House of Representatives election for North Carolina's 9th District. The Republican candidate, Mark Harris, hired an operative to go through Democratic areas within that district, within the 9th District, and that operative effectively obtained and destroyed absentee votes of the citizens within those Democratic areas as a means to give the upper hand to the Republican candidate. Now, those absentee ballots are very, very, very important because the Republican Mark Harris is only in the lead, supposedly, by 900 votes. Because of this scandal, the chances of an entirely new election taking place continues to grow because of the continuously growing amount of evidence implicating some type of voter fraud scheme occurring. Piece of evidence number 1 comes from a local news reporter in North Carolina. Quote, 3 say they gave their absentee ballots to strangers who promised to turn them into officials. They all said they don't know if they were turned in. I checked the voter database. There is no record of these 3 voting in the 2018 election, end quote. Piece number 2 of evidence, quote, 2 counties in the district, Bladen and Robeson, had an unusually high number of absentee ballots that were requested but not returned for the 2018 election, end quote. And finally, piece of evidence number 3, quote, in an interview with WSOC, the voter who said she'd selected her choices for only 2 offices on the ballot before handing it away identified Lisa Britt as the woman who collected her mail-in ballot. Britt is the stepdaughter of Leslie McCrae Dais Jr., a political contractor in the area, BuzzFeed News reported. That same Leslie McCrae Dais Jr. is the operative that was paid by Republican candidate Mark Harris in his campaign, end quote. So, again, the election board, now knowing all of this, was considering holding a new election, so to speak, after having a hearing on January 11th to consider all the information. But that was up until the North Carolina Election Board was effectively dissolved by a state court that ruled them to be unconstitutional. Quote, the Elections Board was supposed to meet on January 11th to review evidence of possible electoral fraud connected to a local operative who worked for the Republican campaign of Mark Harris, but a state court ruled that the board, currently with an even number of Democrats and Republicans plus 1 nonpartisan member, must cease operations after previously finding it unconstitutional, which is part of a legal fight that started in 2016, end quote. Now, I'm going to be cautious and inform you that the state only dissolved this court due to other issues outside of this voter fraud scheme. It was not due to this voter fraud scheme. So, with that being said, the winner of the 9th District House of Representatives vis-a-vis congressional seat has not been certified. However, should the Republican candidate Mark Harris be considered the winner, the Democrats that are taking over the House of Representatives have already stated that they will not seat the Republican candidate Mark Harris. So this essentially leaves 2 choices for North Carolina. Number one, there either will not be a Republican, or there will not be anyone representing the 9th District of North Carolina in the House of Representatives, or number two, they will hold a new election like they should. So to put it simply, the Democrats will have no parts of allowing Republican Mark Harris into the House of Representatives. So now I want to move on to what seems to be the never-ending reach by Republicans to find some form of a scandal in Hillary Clinton's emails. The Republicans that are currently in charge of House of Representative investigations have renewed their call for a second special counsel. Two Republican chairmen, Bob Goodlatte and Trey Gowdy, wrote a letter requesting a second special counsel to, quote, continue to identify and eliminate bias at the federal law enforcement agencies so the public can trust the institutions to make decisions solely on the facts and the law and totally devoid of political bias or consideration, end quote. So this is basically just a bunch of political bullshit to cover up their real request. And that real request is that the Department of Justice protect Donald Trump at all costs. So, despite their constant complaints of bias against Republicans and their several failed attempts to strong-arm witnesses behind their closed-door hearings, the Republicans have failed to provide any substantial evidence to support the claims that they continuously make time and time again. Quote, the 7-page letter comes as a remarkably quiet ending, with lawmakers offering no discernibly new insights or recommendations for how the federal law enforcement agencies erred or might improve their work, end quote. So basically, what we all just witnessed was the end of the forever long crusade and conspiracy of Hillary's emails and government bias against them. It was very anticlimactic because the Republicans have not been able to provide any evidence. They failed to provide a smoking gun, and what they got for all of their trouble was the loss of the House of Representatives. Kudos to you Republicans. I'll come to conclude after the break. In this week's I've Come to Conclude segment, I want to call your attention to the shirt that I've worn for today's episode, and I did so purposely. It says, "Mind the Gap," which is a famous line used in London to promote safety when using their public subway line known as the Tube. Mind the Gap in London means to mind the gap between the subway and the walking platform so that one does not trip and injure themselves when exiting and entering the subway. But for the intents and purposes of this show, I want you to mind a different gap, that gap being education. Quote, according to exit polls from the 2018 midterm election, 61% of non-college educated white voters cast their ballots for Republicans, while just 45% of college-educated white voters did so. Meanwhile, 53% of college-educated white voters cast their votes for Democrats, compared with 37% of those without a degree. End quote. While many people contend that it is impolite to call Trump supporters stupid or dumb, the quote that I just read is clear evidence that supports the claim that most Trump supporters are indeed uneducated. Perhaps that is why they continue to support this man that has cut taxes for the rich people of America and not the base of his supporters. Maybe their lack of education is why they continue to support this man that has shut down the government 3 times in 1 year. Their lack of education could even be the reason why Trump supporters continue to support him despite his Circus Act administration doing nothing more than be sullied by scandal, chaos, and reproach. It is not impolite nor is it elitist to point out the flaws of your opposing party. In my view, it's a service. It is a service because you are pointing out a flaw that could easily be fixed should they have the desire to do so. Pointing out where someone is wrong on a factual level and educating each other, no matter what side you're on, is how discussion happens. And discussion is the only way that we can get back to bipartisanship and working together as a country. If we continue to foolishly and hatefully ignore each other, then we will continue to fall and we will continue to fail when it comes to coming together. With that said, to all of my liberal colleagues, mind the gap between you and the Trump supporter before arguing with them. After all, many of them feed on the conspiracy theories and false propaganda produced by Fox News. And in that same breath, to all my conservative colleagues that are educated and know better, I ask you to mind the gap between yourself and the average racist Trump supporter so that you aren't grouped into that population. This will most likely be one of my most unpopular messages, but oh well. I stand by the life lesson of if you knew better, you'd do better. I want to thank you for watching and rejoining me this week for Backstories. Please remember to like us on Facebook at Backstories US, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at TheBrandonDais, and subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play Music. The information can be found by visiting our website, backstories-us.com. And I look forward to seeing you again next week for another episode of Backstories, which I promise will be way more content-filled and will not be your everyday show on politics.